This is an 18-year-old Jeep Cherokee, and there's its 18-year-old plastic headlight cover, and it doesn't look too bad. But yesterday it looked like that. Turning that into this cost me about 50 cents. And I'll show you how I did it. No, I didn't do it with toothpaste, although this toothpaste and many others are a mild abrasive. And in fact, this looked worse than it does now before last fall when I gave it a once-over with toothpaste. Right now, unwashed, it's pretty dirty. I'm going to clean it. And instead of soap or isopropyl alcohol or a window cleaner, I'm going to go ahead and use the toothpaste, thinking that the mild abrasion can't help but clean it a bit more. All we need is some water. Now I will cut to the next step. I'll probably make a point of rinsing off all the toothpaste, because suspended in it now into that slurry of water and toothpaste is a lot of grit and other dirt. I've opened the hood, put some tape on to protect the fender and grill, and it's worth noting the difference between the color here and the color here on the protected portion that was under the lip of the hood. Just get a mental image of that, store it in your memory. As you can see, this is clearer. You can see the reflectors and the bulbs inside, but it's still quite yellow. The yellow that you're seeing isn't yellow dirt or yellow film, but the topmost layer of the plastic having oxidized, or whatever the chemical term would be, into a kind of plastic rust, not clear. Also, I noticed there's quite an area of scratch right there, and all of that, if we were microscopic in size and we were standing on it, it would look like a corroded plane rather than a smooth surface. We're going to take that down. Actually, if we'd spent like 2 days with the toothpaste, we could have got it down quite a bit, but there's no point in that, because we can use wet and dry sandpaper. This is a 600 grit. You want to wet your sandpaper, even wet it ahead of time, and wet the area you're going to sand. And in general, with a circular motion, sand until you're tired. I hope that you can see a muddy looking slurry running down. An examination of it would show that it looks yellow. Yellow on the lens, that's precisely what you want to get off of there. So this is working. How long to do this? Do this until the slurry is white looking, because the clear plastic suspended in the water will look white. And continually clean off the slurry. It contains yet more grit, and whatever that yellow plastic is, it's not going to do your sanding any good. It needs to come off of there. I chose a 600 grit using an old engineer's trick. I went to the store and it was the only grit they had. But an entire sheet of this wet dry cost me about $2. This is about 1/6 of the sheet. I used it yesterday on the other lens, and it's still got a lot of grit left. And there's still some discoloration in the slurry. I'm not doing the portion over the running lights and the turn signals because I don't want to. My object here is to get more light out of my headlights onto the pavement so I will be safer. When I'm done, and I'm about 80% there, all the surface that I've sanded will look frosted, which is not good. We had to use this abrasion to get rid of the ruined plastic and leave an unruined layer that was underneath. Possibly you can see that the slurry is almost white now. I'm done sanding and it's dried, and I can make an appraisal. It's uniformly frosty. I can barely make out the circular motions that I was making while I was sanding, which is pretty good. And if I can get in, if you can see, the unsanded spots, which also were not very yellow, have a rather glass-like appearance. And below that, it's frosty, like an office window. So that's no good for driving. If we can set this up again. There we go. We'll take out the frostiness. I've got a damp sock, a dime store polishing compound. It's a 10-ounce can. And I'm not going to need very much of it. Not going to need very much of it at a time. And not going to need very much of it for the whole job. What I do is I distribute it. And the can says to use a straight motion for polishing. And who am I to argue with a plastic can? This is what's really going to take time. I probably spent 10 or 15 minutes wet dry sanding. I'll easily take 3 times that long polishing. But the polish is cheap, the rag was free, and I have all the time in the world. Because it won't get dark again for another 8 or 10 hours. Yesterday I did the right headlight, and last night full overcast. Although I was in town where there are a lot of street lights, I judge I got a third or a half again as much light out of that right side as I was before I cleaned it. And of course I'll do around the corner as well. But if I spend 30 minutes or more doing this, I'm certainly not going to include that in the video. But take my word for it, very slowly I commence to see less satin effect and a much flatter effect. Those reflectors and whatnot inside are starting to become more visible to me, and I can always compare the unscratched portion above to the part I'm working on. "30 minutes worth of buffing, polishing, at which point I became tired, and this is the result. I also spent about 60 seconds polishing the turn signal lens, as though I were simply cleaning it. And exclusive of the reflections from the green grass, I believe we got a pretty clear piece of plastic. Here's the one I did yesterday, and again exclusive of reflections. Looks pretty good. In this light you can see some crazing, some horizontal crazing. Like I said, these lenses are 18 years old. But for 30 cents worth of sandpaper, which is still good, and the polishing compound was $4.50, 10 ounces, 45 cents an ounce. If you're going to tell me I used an ounce of compound, I'm going to say you're wrong. And a nickel for some masking tape or painter's tape, and roughly an hour's half's worth of work, and I have nice clean lenses, and they'll stay that way I don't know how long. Maybe they would get just as yellow as you saw at the beginning in 18 years. But as a professional would do, you could put a seal coat or whatever it is called on them, or even just a coat of car wax, which of course would take the brunt of the dirt and the sun, and then you can wash it off and reapply fresh. It's up to you, but I did 2 headlight covers for $1 and a couple hours worth of time and several weeks thinking it over. Good luck.